1, 2, 3, 4.
Screen time, screen time, screen time, screen time.
It's my screen time too.
Screen time.
Hello, and welcome to It's My Screen Time Too, the podcast where two moms review the best and worst in children's programming. From Netflix reboots and YouTube shorts to Disney classics and Pixar blockbusters. We watch, you listen. Find out what you can tolerate watching for family movie night, what to avoid altogether, and what you'll want to watch alone voluntarily. I'm Deborah.
And I'm Katie.
And I have 3 kids. Tony is 13, and Libby and Nate are 10.
And I have 2 kids. Jay is 7 and Kenny is 4. They are pretty stinking adorable, aren't they?
They are.
Well, we both like to tell a quick story about how awesome or occasionally awful our kids are, because in addition to being witty and incisive pop culture consumers, we're moms too. Deborah, what have your kids been up to?
Just this morning on the way to the bus stop, we saw Tony's bus stop friend at the corner, and he was standing with a older lady who had a puppy on a leash. And we're like 2 blocks away, and Tony was like, puppy. And he just sprinted to the bus stop. And it was a super adorable puppy that I got to meet too. But I was just like, oh, that's adorable.
What would we do without the enthusiasm of our children?
Mm-hmm. How about your boys?
They just had their first full week of no school, no activities or anything. So they were home all the time. And so, that means there was a bump in screen time.
Mm-hmm.
That bump in screen time was largely taken up by rewatches of the Super Mario Brothers movie. Because even though I didn't like it very much, my kids adored it.
Sure.
So the upshot is Kenny is just walking around the house all the time going, Mario, Luigi, and a Donkey Kong too. He has a little dance that goes with it, which of course then sets me off, and we're both doing our best like Jack Black rockin' out impressions. And
Cute.
I'm using like every implement in the kitchen as a fake microphone. It's really fun.
That sounds really cute. Yay for summer.
Yes. Speaking of summer, it feels like the content creators on the internet are taking a little summer break in writing about screen time. How's that for a segue?
Good.
Because I really, really struggled. I felt like I was scraping the bottom of the internet to try and find a good topic for our screen time in the news segment today. So I found a really promising article, and I was very excited to read it, to the point that I subscribed to the free trial of Apple News to attempt to get it, only to find out that I would need to pay for a whole other tier of membership on top of that.
Oh.
Yeah, quite frustrating. So anyway, there's this extremely interesting article from the VIP Plus section of Variety titled Kids Content Strategy Will Be Key to Success of WBD's Max by Tyler Aquilina. And for those of you who may not be as in the weeds in all of this as we are, Max is what HBOMax is now being called.
Mm-hmm.
And we had been complaining earlier because HBOMax had removed quite a bit of their animated content and their kids' content. So we had speculated that maybe that just wasn't a direction that they were choosing to head in. But apparently, at least according to the headline of this article, it is, in fact, a direction in which they're planning to head. And I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts a little bit, Deborah, on the state of the streaming industry and where we are with all of the big players in terms of their kids' content.
Well, okay. 2 questions. One, I wonder if you could get the article if you bought Variety magazine, which I'm way more inclined to do than to sign up for a recurring subscription.
But I can get full issues of Variety magazine via our library and now via this Apple Plus subscription. So I don't think it came in the print. It must be some separate pay tier that they're doing, which I respect. You got to do what you got to do to be sustainable in today's media environment. I'm just frustrated.
Right. Okay. My second question is, was HBO Max ever about the kids' content? That seems really weird to me. They had kids stuff on there, but I would never have added HBO Max just based on like family movies and kids shows.
But the bizarro outlier was always Sesame Street, right? They
But I
had,
don't feel like anybody was buying HBO just to get Sesame Street.
but you felt like it should have been a pathway. Like, why would you pick up Sesame Street if you weren't going to invest in a wider slate of kids' content to encourage people to do just that?
Right.
It never feels like they really fulfilled on that promise to the point where we only review things on HBO Max, now Max, very rarely. As far as the other big streamers are concerned, Disney Plus is in major cost cutting mode right now. And I feel like even prior to that, they were really focused on franchise continuations for Marvel and Star Wars more than things that were directly kids content. I feel like they were really relying on their vault of Disney stuff to bring the kids in. And then in terms of their originals, they were kind of focused on, I don't want to say the grown-ups, because ostensibly Marvel and Star Wars aren't like adult fare, but I think you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, of course, they for a while had their new movies coming out on Disney Plus, but now that we're cycling back to things being released in theaters, they're not even going to have that new content for kids right away. So I feel like they're falling away as a big competitor. And then you have Amazon and Apple, who really don't seem to be investing in any consistent way in the space. I mean, for every Jane, which we just reviewed on Apple and really liked, you have a Tumbleleaf or a Creative Galaxy, or the things that we've really been disappointed by.
Right.
Paramount Plus has such a deep bench of content, but they're in such dire financial straits right now that I don't feel like they have the headspace to deal with how to fix that. Which just leaves Netflix as like the big contender in the space. So I feel like if this is true and if Max is really going to get into it, that it could be a good thing. I think Netflix could stand to have a real competitor again while Disney gets its act together.
Yeah, it would be great if there was more content for kids. I am a little afraid that we've jumped the shark, if you will, on peak TV. We're on the downward slope now in terms of content creation with the writer's strike and cost cutting.
Although, as we learned last week, those animated shows don't tend to be that affected. So,
True.
so who's to say? So all of this was just to say I really wanted to read that article. If anyone has access to Variety VIP Plus, I would love to read it. And then today, for our main topic, we are actually reviewing a new show on Max. So we thought we would fold it into our news topic. But before we get there...
Do you have follow-up?
I do. I have to tell you something.
Perfect.
I watched 2 more episodes of American Born Chinese voluntarily, not by myself, with my husband, but like not with my kids, which so rarely happens.
Okay. Do you both like it the same?
Both did like it. Weirdly, now I think my husband is more invested in continuing than I am, because I think the 4th episode just totally lost me, because it was 100% set in the Monkey Kingdom.
Oh.
And I feel like it was riffing off some trope of maybe traditional Chinese television or something. Whatever the joke was, I was not getting it.
Okay.
Which did not make it easy for me to connect. And then I had the other thought, and I can't believe we didn't mention this in our review. Because it was totally set in the Monkey Kingdom, the entire episode was subtitled. So you really have to have kids that are old enough to be comfortable with that for them to be able to continue on with it.
Well, that's kind of a bummer. That makes me not want to continue watching it myself.
I mean, Kevin is still liking it, so that is just the opinion of one person. But I did feel a little alienated by that 4th episode.
Yeah. Shoot. Well, let's go to our mini lightning round. It hasn't been too long since our last lightning round, but we're starting summer movie season, and we're finally getting some new kids movies in theaters.
Yay!
We tried to pick a movie to review together, but Katie's kids would not agree with my kids.
No.
sharply divided on what they wanted to see. So we're trying something a little bit different. We're each going to give you a mini review of a different movie, and then we're going to review a TV show together. My kids and I saw Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse.
And Kenny and I saw the live action Little Mermaid.
And then, as we mentioned, we both watched a couple of episodes of the new Max show, Gremlins, Secrets of the Mogwai.
So I'll just jump in right away with my Little Mermaid review.
Okay.
We saw this opening weekend, so Memorial Day weekend. It was really crowded. There were lots of adorable mother-daughter pairs dressed as Ariel. It was very sweet. So if you are unaware, listeners, this is a live-action remake of the 1989 Disney animated classic. And the remake was released on May 26, 2023. Actually comes in at a whopping 2 hours, 15 minutes. If you've been alive at all for the past 10 years, you know what this is. It's a slavish so-called live action, but actually very CGI heavy remake of an animated classic. It was directed by Rob Marshall, who you feel like means it's in capable hands because he's no stranger to directing adaptations. He directed the movie versions of Into the Woods and Chicago, as well as the new Mary Poppins movie, Mary Poppins Returns. This movie, The Little Mermaid, caught some pre-release flack among racists for casting Black actress Halle Bailey, who I cannot not call Halle Berry the first time I say her name.
Same. And I read it that way from the start. And I was like, isn't she a little aged to be playing Ariel?
So, yes, they cast Halle Bailey, who is definitely not Halle Berry, as Ariel. But otherwise, this movie seems to have progressed much as all other Disney live-action remakes have. So I feel like my two major criticisms fall under the two reasons you would ever be excited to see any Disney live-action movie as a grown-up. So here we go. The first reason is that you loved the original and you're psyched to share an updated version with your kids. To which I say, why? What is wrong with just sharing the original with them? What do you truly believe that this new version is going to bring to the table? So interrogate that first. Then there's a very important 1A to that, which is that you loved the original and you want to share it with your kids, but it's somehow problematic now, which is something that we run into a lot, right? Some of them need updates. The Little Mermaid is super problematic from a feminist perspective. This woman literally gives up her voice to get a man. The new version kind of tries to correct this by having Ariel express a curiosity about the world and a love of adventure that matches Eric's. I would go so far as to say they do a pretty admirable job of trying to give Ariel a little more agency. But there's only so much you could do because that element of the plot, her losing her voice to get her legs, is kind of baked in, right? I guess I'll also address this would be the choice to make Ariel black. I think it's great. I'm all for representation. And Halle Bailey is super charming as Ariel. However, she could not single-handedly save this movie. Like, there is enough wrong with it that I don't consider that a good enough movie, a good enough reason to go see it.
Is it all the original songs?
They cut out a couple and they put 3, I believe, new ones in.
Oh.
Penned by Lin-Manuel Miranda, which might be a selling point for some people.
Right.
Since he is pretty beloved. Again, I would say not enough. The new songs are pretty forgettable. One of them I didn't even hear because I took a pee break. So that brings me to the second reason why you, a grown-up, might be excited to see a Disney live-action remake. And that is just to see how they pulled off recreating it in a more realistic setting. This, I would argue, is only interesting in an academic way. How will they recreate Ariel's famous hair flip? How will they make Flounder be not terrifying as an actual fish? Will the new Lin-Manuel Miranda songs be as catchy as the originals? Spoiler alert, they won't. The thing is, your kids probably do not share this academic curiosity. Either they have not seen the original, or they just have not internalized it enough to wonder about these specific things. I can give you an answer on pretty much all fronts. The answer is they don't pull it off. It looks bad. The
Oh.
CGI looks either cheap or weird. It saps favorite characters of their charm. I cannot tell you how sad Sebastian is. Like, he
Oh.
he's not the vibrant character from the original. He is just a weird looking crab reciting all the lines of the vibrant character from the original. And everything that happens in the ocean is all drab and fuzzy and it's not fun. The movie is actually better when Ariel is out of the water. Like, the scenes where she is a human and has legs are the better scenes in the movie, which feels wrong for this movie. So, in short, do not see it. Just watch the original with your kids. Have a robust talk about women getting to have agency over their own lives and kind of allow them to live in that fun, zippy little cartoon world.
Well, thanks for taking one for our team here and subjecting yourself to over 2 hours.
It was so long and it felt so long.
That's too bad. Okay, I watched another long movie, but I had a much better experience. This is my review of Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse, which is the PG animated sequel to 2018's Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse that came out in theaters on June 2nd, 2023. We reviewed Spider-Verse back in episode 52, which was when we were recording in the evenings with a glass of pink wine, which now we don't do that anymore. The latest installment in this franchise clocks in at 2 hours and 20 minutes. But I will say, even with like half an hour of previews ahead of the regular movie, it didn't feel that long to me. It stars Miles Morales venturing into the multiverse where he is reunited with Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker, along with many, many other Spideys. If you can believe it, I liked Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse even better than the original.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the animation was more than stunning. I thought the animation in the first one was really beyond, but this was even better. Gwen's world is like all watercolory and beautiful. Miles' world is a different type of animation. It's really saturated. And if you remember how you could see like the comic book pixels faintly in the characters, they're still there again. Spot, the villain, is done in a pen and ink style, super inventive. And the movie's about an elite society of Spidermen, who keep watch over all of the multiverse. Jess Drew was a favorite of mine of the Spiders in Charge, played by Issa Rae. There's a Spider-Man India, who is probably the most comedic element. He has a really funny line when he's showing the other elite Spider Force around his world, and he's like, "Don't eat, pray, me, love me, bro." There's an incredible spider punk, an anarchist with a British accent, who is probably my favorite. But really, no matter who you are, there's a Spider-Man for you in this movie because there's so many of them. And I feel like every Spider-Man movie is in some way about the push and pull between conformity and non-conformity and finding one's own path and being comfortable in their own skin. I kind of wondered when I was watching it, like, is every Spider-Man movie an allegory for adolescence? I don't know. I haven't watched them closely enough to tell that, but I loved it. It's a movie that you can definitely bring kids to, but I would not classify it as a kids movie. I would say it's a 4-quadrant spectacular. Everybody will love it. But I don't know what you like to watch in movies, listeners, so maybe you won't, but I loved it.
I have heard nothing but raves. I'm so jealous that you got to see it. I couldn't be more. I mean, I'm never disappointed in my kids. I love them, but I am disappointed they don't want to see this movie.
Yeah, well, you and Kevin should go. I think you would both like it.
Yeah, I think it might merit a grown-up date night out.
Mm-hmm.
So together this week, we both watched a couple episodes of the new show Gremlins: The Secret of the Mogwai. which is an animated television series based on the classic movie Gremlins from 1984 and its sequel. I didn't write down when the sequel came out, a few years later.
Mm-hmm.
The show debuted May 23rd, 2023 on Max, formerly HBOMax. It appears they're releasing 2 episodes a week for 10 half-hour episodes total. And according to Wikipedia, it was renewed for a second season even before the first season premiered. Quick summary. It's set in 1920s Shanghai, where a cautious 10-year-old named Sam Wing is introduced to Gizmo the Mogwai by his adorably kooky grandfather. When dark forces attempt to capture the Mogwai, Sam is tasked with returning them to their home valley before they can become gremlins and destroy the city. We picked it because, as we discussed in Screen Time in the News, we're curious about how Max intends to move forward with kids' content. We've actually talked a little bit before this year about introducing scary content to kids, and so we were curious as to how this fit the bill. And, we love a reboot. We just can't resist them. They're there for us. So we watched the first 2 episodes. Episode 1, Never Get Them Wet, and episode 2, Never Feed Them After Midnight. I don't think we're really going to go through the episodes one by one since we're a bit pressed for time today. And in watching the first 2 episodes, we really just introduced the premise and didn't get too far into Sam's journey. So with that in mind, we'll jump right into our general thoughts.
How about the overall concept and the plot? What did you think?
I didn't know what to think going into it because I actually had never seen Gremlins.
Same.
Really?
I've never seen Gremlins either.
Wow. We are both, I guess, we were young enough when Gremlins came out that we were kept from seeing it because it was a scary movie.
Mm-hmm.
And the rhetoric that it was actually like a scary kids movie didn't break into my consciousness until I was an adult. And I was no longer interested in seeing it. But I think it was made to be kind of a goofy horror movie, right?
I don't know, since I haven't seen it. I definitely remember the lore about Gremlins, and they kind of fuzz together in my head with Ewoks a little bit because they're kind of
They do look a little
similar.
Ewok-y with big ears.
Yeah, so I remember knowing that you're not supposed to feed them after midnight, but I have no history with actually watching the movie. So I kind of liked the plot. I don't know how it relates to the movie though.
But it should be noted that it required us to know nothing about the plot. We didn't feel left behind in any way.
No, you can follow the plot. I just don't know if it's a rehashing of the movie or if it's a continuation of something. What were your expectations going in?
My expectations were that it was going to be really dumb. And then it was going to be one of those reboots that is just a crass cash grab for millennials who are nostalgic for their own childhoods. So with that in mind, I was pleasantly surprised. How about you?
For some reason, I thought it was going to be geared toward I thought it was going to be like a Muppet Babies.
Gremlin babies, don't feed them after midnight.
Yeah, so I was kind of pleasantly surprised that it was a little more complex than the preschool show I anticipated. And then Steven Spielberg's name is all over it. So then that bumped up my expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And the cast is incredible. Was there anybody that you particularly loved or hated?
Well, I loved Sam's grandpa. I thought he was delightful. I love it when an unexpected authority figure comes in and encourages a kid to break out of their humdrum world. I really like that as a trope, and I thought it worked really well. How about you?
I liked Matthew Rice, who plays the villain. And B.D. Wong, he's so good. He is the dad. And Ming-Na Wen, I remember her from back in the ER days. And then Gray Griffin, who used to be Grey Delisle.
Uh-huh.
She's also on there. One of the most ubiquitous voice actors that we encounter in our reviews of animated and kids shows.
Yeah, she works hard.
What did you think about the look of the show?
All right, so it was computer animated like all shows are now. And I don't know that I gave it as critical an eye as I have past shows because this week was kind of packed. But did you feel like the outlines were a little bit brushstrokey?
It was more advanced CGI or better CGI than normal.
I wondered if it was a nod to like Chinese calligraphy in that way, in which case I thought it
Mm.
was really beautiful.
Yeah. Did you think that the Mogwai were cuter as puppets or as animated creatures?
Well, I think there's something to be said for that tactile quality of the puppets, you know? I mean, it's definitely the case with Ewoks, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
they're way cuter as puppets. And I think the same with the Mogwai. Like, imagining you could pick them up and cuddle them is so much easier when it's an actual physical object.
Well, and Gizmo's real. Well, I guess when you first see them in like the Jade, is it the Jade Kingdom or the Jade Forest?
Jade
When it's
Valley,
like
maybe? I thought it was Valley. I don't know.
the whole like village of gremlins, I thought that they're really cute. And Gizmo is really cute, but then everything that spawns from
Yes!
Gizmo is really grotesque.
So Gizmo gets wet, and if you remember, listeners, when you get a Mogwai wet, they like reproduce.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, all of the spawn is really ugly. And I found myself asking, well, is Gizmo then the only cute Mogwai?
But he wasn't in the village. Like they were all
Okay.
super adorable, and you wanted to pick them up and pet them all. But
Okay, maybe Gizmo's just not meant to be a parent.
so, what did you think about the length and the structure? Each episode was pretty short. They were under 30 minutes.
This is definitely a serialized plot. So, like I said, I
Mhm.
don't even feel like in watching 2 episodes we really got going very much. We didn't even really get introduced to the villain until the second episode, and Sam didn't receive his like marching orders to go and protect the Mogwai until fairly late in that second episode. So it's something that's going to reward you watching the whole thing. I wonder how they're going to wrap it up and then continue it for a second season. And given a serialized plot like that, given the producing power behind it in Steven Spielberg, again, I have to wonder why they didn't just make a movie.
That's a good point. It would definitely work as a movie. I accidentally watched the third one, and it continues with the hero goes on a journey plot line. Were you able to were you able to compare this to a movie or a show for grown-ups?
Yes, and I had it on the tip of my tongue and I didn't write it down and then I forgot it. Oh, yes. The Mandalorian.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Just the whole like, you have to protect the adorable baby.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. That makes sense.
How about you?
Okay, I don't know where this started, if it was episode 2 or 3, but Riley Green, the villain, locks Sam's parents in like a little cage. Your face is telling me that was maybe episode
I think
3.
it was episode 3. I don't remember.
So they're in this like transparent cage. They can't get out. And so that reminded me a lot of You on Netflix.
Oh, yes.
Which is very creepy. The villain was good. He was very scary.
Well,
At one point, he like balls up Sam's grandpa and eats him.
yeah, that was so gross. He like unhinged his jaw.
Yeah.
Speaking of Matthew Rhys, I have been watching the Perry Mason reboot.
Oh yeah.
I just finished the first season and he is great in it.
He's a really good actor. We started Extrapolations on Apple Plus, but we're probably not going to finish it because it's too dark.
I don't know that I've ever even heard of that show. And when you say too dark, do you mean tonally or it just looks too dark because that's how things look now?
Oh, not aesthetically. It takes place in the not too distant future where the Earth is like burning up.
Yes, I have heard of this.
Mhm.
No, I immediately said it's too much too real.
Yeah, Jane was enough for
Yeah.
climate apocalypse content.
Oh, that's rough.
Were you able to cast the gritty HBO reboot?
Okay, so I want to replace one cranky grandfather with another and
Mhm.
use James Hong, who was in Everything Everywhere All at Once, as the cranky
Ooh.
grandfather, as Sam's kooky grandfather. I don't know that I would necessarily call him cranky. He's cranky in some ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in some of those scenes when like Sam was running through Shanghai and, you know, trying to keep away from like the band of bad guys trying to get Gizmo, it reminded me, and this is like a long meandering explanation. It reminded me of that those chase scenes from the animated Aladdin, you know, when the guards are chasing Aladdin through the town and he's singing that song. Gosh, what is that song called? Anyway, he's singing as he's running from the guards. So it made me think maybe I would cast someone with like musical chops and they could do something like that. So I thought of Harry Shum Jr., who was also in Everything Everywhere All at Once. But he's a veteran of Glee, if you ever watched that show.
Okay. Yeah, I love Glee.
And then, of course, if you're going to cast someone to do the voice of Gizmo, it has to be Alan Tudyk, right? He is like the man for the weird voices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one.
How about you? Did you cast?
This is a little bit cheating. I would cast Awkwafina in the role of Sam, and I would try to make it funny and comedic and slapstick. And then on the IMDb for the show, Sandra Oh, George Takei, and Bowen Yang are all in it. But they weren't in the episodes that we watched, so I would cast them in some supporting roles as Awkwafina. Like, wouldn't that be funny to see her with a gremlin and trying to wrestle and like not feed it and not like she's just such a physical comedic actor. She would try to like keep it from getting in the spilled water and stuff like that. It would be funny.
I think that would be great. I should mention as a side note that she was in the new Little Mermaid. She does the voice of Scuttle, the seagull. And it was a total duck butt moment. I was like, well, this is a live action remake. Why can't we just have Awkwafina waddling around in a little seagull costume?
Was it? Well, we don't know if it was better when we were kids.
It's true. We don't know the answer to that. Gremlins fans, let us know what we've been missing, and maybe we'll do like a bonus episode where Deborah and Katie watch Gremlins.
Would you ever watch this alone voluntarily?
Now I have to be careful because after I tried to watch American Born Chinese and got burned out before the end, this plot is definitely good. It's really fun. If it were a movie, I would watch to the end, no question. 10 episodes plus a potential second season is a lot to commit to. But maybe? You?
I wouldn't watch it alone, but I would definitely introduce it to my kids.
So does that mean you watched these 3 episodes alone?
I did.
Okay. Yeah. I watched them with my kids, which I was nervous about because not knowing Gremlins, I was worried that it would be too scary. But Jay was very into it.
Okay.
So I think he's a good age. I think in terms of the introducing so-called scary content to kids, like this fits his 7 to 8 age range really well.
Mm-hmm.
I think I freaked out Kenny, so I don't think I would continue to watch with him.
Okay.
Because I assume things get a little bit more intense as the season goes on.
Probably, yeah.
I haven't even seen Gremlins yet.
Right.
No, I mean, like, I haven't seen the Mogwai become gremlins.
Wait, but they're so ugly. I thought those were the gremlins.
I'm very confused. I thought if you feed them after midnight, then they become the gremlins.
Okay, well, I guess, so I think if you go to episode 3, you'll see gremlins.
Okay.
I'm a little ahead of you. 10 seconds on whether, well, you kind of just did 10 seconds on whether this is good for kids.
What do you think?
I think it's fine for a slightly older kid, not preschool age.
Agreed. Which maybe like HBO is trying to carve out that same like gritty kid space that they have in like the adult drama.
Right.
Gremlins, it's like Succession for your children. Ratings?
I would give it a 4.
Same. I thought this was really fun, and I'm kind of bummed that you got to watch one more episode than I did. Well, listeners, thank you for coming along on our mini lightning round this week. If you enjoyed our show, please share it with someone you think might enjoy it too. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at MyScreenTime2, or you can always send an email to myscreentime2@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your show or movie suggestions, article recommendations, or general comments about the show. We'd love to hear what you think about all the movies we talked about today. Our website is myscreentime2.com. Our theme music was composed and performed by Deborah and her adorable children, and our podcast is produced by me, Katie. If you like what you've heard today, please check out our other podcast, Spock Talk, which is now available on Apple Podcast or wherever else you get your podcasts. Tune in next time for more real talk about the movies and TV we watch with our kids because we have to, and sometimes because we like to. Bye!
Bye.
Screen time.